Conversation, but of course the economics continues on into our tech note this morning as we look at housing in urban informal settlements. The backbone of it is that Uganda's high population growth rate of 3% coupled with a high urbanization rate translates into glaring gaps in the demand and supply of decent housing units. The current housing deficit is estimated at 2.4 million housing units. Now, given the housing gaps, nearly half, which equates to 48.3% of the country's urban population, lives in informal and substandard settlements that are in the dreadful state and require some upgrade or resettlement, or even replacement for that matter. Consequently, if you look at the year 2025, the population of Uganda is expected to grow to 52 million people, and the housing deficit will then increase to 4 million. There have been some efforts to improve the state of housing, especially in urban areas. Now, to help us dive deeper into the economics of this conversation, I am joined by Mr. Robert Otim, who is the National Director for Habitat for Humanity Uganda. Good morning to you, Mr. Otim.
Good morning, Priscilla.
You're most welcome.
Happy to be here.
All right. So looking at the housing deficits that we do have in Uganda, the informal settlements that seem to have mushroomed out of nowhere, most especially by the fact that we have just come out of a pandemic that affected people, especially the ones that on the grassroots, left, right and center, that they had to relocate to less privileged places in order to survive. What is that picture looking like on your side?
Thank you, Priscilla. The word you use, that they're mushrooming from nowhere, I think they're coming from somewhere. There are two facts that are very important in terms of the demographics. The trend at which the population is bulging is so high, not only in Uganda, but across the world, and particularly in our African continent. And the movements from the rural areas to the urban areas. And most of the time, the places that receive our young people who come from the rural areas is the informal settlements. They find them as homes where they can thrive. And so with the increasing population, there's a lot of pressure in terms of a need for housing in these areas. There's also a lot of pressure for the basic services, housing. Besides housing, we have water, hygiene and sanitation, energy, and so forth. And so these dimensions of the demographic trends are going to continue. They're not about to stop. And that's why it's extremely urgent to begin looking at things differently and facing on what do we need to do. This is why the Housing Symposium is being planned, for actors to be able to critically reflect and try to share solutions that can help to uplift, to provide voices for the people who are living in these informal settlements. We know for sure that they are very innovative, they are thriving, and their voices, if listened, their ideas, if put to action, can lead to a lot of transformation and also improvements in the housing and living conditions within these informal settlements.
I know that with the organization, there's a common phrase that is used: decent and affordable housing. Could you elaborate to us what that actually means?
Now, as a leading global housing organization across the world, Habitat for Humanity has a framework. Now, let me just share the key areas that we focus, and I'll start with affordability. In our program framework, we have prioritized, and as a country, we have the Impact 2027 strategic plan. Affordability comes number one. We know for sure that if I make reference to, again, informal settlements, for one like you could be living maybe outside the informal settlement, to afford a two-roomed apartment in our urban settings, you need more than 40% or even 50% of your salary to be able to get that basic apartment. The materials for construction itself are extremely high. We know for sure in this country there are moments in a year where cement has to reach 40,000 shillings or even above. We know it happens every year if you look at it. And those are regulatory issues. We also know for sure that accessing financing to be able to build for a majority of Ugandans is still a dream. And that's why we're bringing all stakeholders together. As Habitat for Humanity, we are humble. And we have realized we cannot do this alone. And that's why we're bringing actors together to be able to support collectively the affordability issues in this country. The other area that we focus on as Habitat for Humanity is habitability. And that relates to decency. We have a number of less privileged Ugandans, the orphans, the widows, the elderly, who are often left behind in all development aspects. Who attends to them? Habitat for Humanity has been supportive of these categories of these people over the last 40 years. We have built and improved over 40,000 homes for these particular people. And so that is an area that we are going to continue to ensure that we have decency, we have security, we have dignity of these people upheld by focusing on habitability. Basic services is the other. For all the homes that we build, water, hygiene, and sanitation is critical. It's just a standard, it's a must. And we know that it's part of a home. And then the other last aspect I could talk about is the security of tenure, land tenure security. For all the homes that we build as an organization, we have to, by all means, ensure there's some sort of tenure security. In informal settlements, people live in anxiety. They don't know whether they will continue and waking up in the same homes because of the rampant evictions. The vulnerability in terms of the houses that they have. You know, our offices are down in Kamocha. Sometimes I pass that way. When the floods come, even children have to, people stand in different areas because their homes are prone to disaster. When this El Nino is coming, you're going to see many homes collapsing and washed away in informal settlements. So those are the dynamics that we need to get together collectively as a sector. How do we support the people living in these settlements? They too have the right to a basic house, to living decently in these communities. So I think the conversation and the upcoming symposium continues to give the sector a platform for stakeholders to begin reflecting, setting back and be able to appreciate the milestones, but also ahead, looking ahead, and what is still needs to be delivered within the sector to improve on affordability of housing in this country.
From your experience as a national leading housing organization, you mentioned the word pressure. These are the realities on ground. There's pressure on land. If it's not land wrangles, you purchasing that land can be cumbersome, or even the cost of you getting that land. You look at the high cost of construction materials that you did mention in there, and that particular year, everyone knows when a financial year is closing, transitioning into another, prices go through the roof. You have talked about the, the low opportunities of funding that do exist for Ugandans generally, and the planning bottlenecks cannot be negated because also the powers that be must put some policies and regulatory things in place to be able to manage that. But then on the other side, there's low supply. I mean, there's low demand for supply of housing. One, because of the per capita income, how much is coming into people's pockets, the ones that you talked about that will migrate from the rural places to come into the urban centers, but how much are they earning to afford the decent housing if it should be existed? You also look at the high costs of borrowing. If there are banks out there that are giving housing opportunities, funding, but at what cost will that be at the end of the day? And so there's so many issues around that. What would be the ideal solutions towards this, especially for private sector and then on the side of government? Again,
as a network, as a global network, we have undertaken research. to unpack the transformational impact of housing. That should be the starting point. While we accept that, yes, this is a basic human right, and all we urge governments to take that up. And we have also understood that if we or governments and actors prioritize housing, the economic growth in terms of the GDP over 10.5%, there's opportunity for us to increase on the GDP in this country. It's a driver for economic growth. We have talked about recovery from COVID-19. So if we use that angle in terms of ensuring that housing is going to transform the sector, is going to have economic dividends that need to be tapped into, then government and other actors can be able to focus. The private sector definitely can be able to ensure that there's prioritization and segmentation. Right now, the private sector is interested in some margins, and the margins are got from those who are earning. And so a majority of the Ugandan population are unable to afford the many apartments or houses that are being constructed in this country. So rethinking and segmentation and being able to really plan for the majority of Ugandans who need the housing. And so it comes back to also the mortgages that we have. These are extremely very unaffordable. I think the previous conversation that you had was really on interest rates. Yeah. And now that government is coming to reality about this, I think it's going to be one step in the right direction in terms of ensuring even the financial access that we have from the financial institutions can at least be able to target the population that need the housing in this country. Okay. And when you look at the health aspects, a home equals to health. We have also undertaken research. The Ministry of Health certainly has pointed out clearly that 75% of the disease burden in this country can be reduced if you have a decent home. Okay. And research that Habitat for Humanity has done, I think in Honduras, in Mexico, we have also gotten to know a home that, for instance, has been replaced with a cement floor has higher chances of reducing parasite, diarrhea, pneumonia by 36%. And also cognitive abilities for children, up to 96%. Children who live in homes that are decent, they wake up and they go happily to school, have higher chances of completing and excelling in their academic lives. And for us as people, you and me, if you come from a place that is not decent, even just retaining your job is going to be difficult. Yeah. Because you come, you're stressed, you're not going to be delivering on your objectives at work. You know, so these are the dynamics. They are the realities that we face on a daily basis.
Well, on 2nd October annually, there's a global observation for World Habitat Day, and under the theme for 2023 is looking at resilient urban economies, cities as drivers of growth and recovery. How must cities in Uganda, or 10 cities here in Uganda, position themselves for a national, regional driver of socio-economic resilience and growth?
That's a very good question, complex, and what I can say, we are in the right direction. By designating these cities, I think it's a first step by recognizing that, yes, we cannot do without cities. We have the new urban agenda, the Sustainable Development Goal 11, that are focused in terms of ensuring that our cities thrive, they are livable, they are sustainable, they can be able to withstand the climate variations, but at the same time ensure that the populations, the people that live in them, are able to live and develop and enjoy the environment within these cities. And so I think government has taken affirmative steps in terms of planning for these cities. It will take a lot of time for us to reach where we want if we compare ourselves to other cities across the continent or beyond. But I am positive that we are in the right direction, and again it will require collective efforts. Even government alone may not be able to deliver this.
Speaking of collective efforts, talk to us about the National Housing Symposium coming up.
Excellent. We are very excited to be again hosting the second National Housing Symposium in the country. It's a platform that we are going to in-depth discuss the issues that we have shared here. Affordability is the key theme for this symposium, and particularly in the informal settlements. Habitat for Humanity recently launched a global advocacy campaign that we call Home Equals Campaign. This is a very incredible campaign that has been received very well in the country here, and we are having different actors that we are going to be working with. The campaign seeks to ensure that empowered participation within the informal settlements, the issues around tenure security handled in a way that we appreciate the less privileged communities within our informal settlements. The issues around basic services are part and parcel, and also basic human rights for communities that live in these informal settlements. So the symposium brings over 300 stakeholders from the academia, the private sector, the real estate, the manufacturers, government, civil society organization, and this time we are having over nearly 20 international participants physically attending this symposium. We do expect a variety of conversations around financing for affordable housing, research into the housing ecosystem, where we are going to have some solutions that are going to combat malaria within the homes that we have. We are also going to have conversations, partnerships at the community level, where Habitat for Humanity currently is supporting and working with our family partners to build their own homes. It's a family-led kind of approach in terms of construction. And we are also going to have technologies unpacked, from climate resilient technologies, those that use stabilized blocks, those that use earthen floors. We have partners, about 15 exhibitors who are there. So we are going to see a variety of technologies that provide options for the middle and low income Ugandans to be able to have a dream home that they desire.
Okay. All right. In your closing remarks, Mr. Otim.
As Habitat for Humanity, we are appealing to all the sector stakeholders that it's only when we work together that's when we can take commendable strides in terms of addressing issues around affordability. So we call upon actors that let's embrace the Home Equals advocacy campaign. Let's embrace the sector-wide National Housing Symposium, because if we work together rather than working in silos, we may not be able to achieve. Ugandans are very enterprising. There's so many solutions and innovations. Our policies are interesting and good. We need to work together to ensure that we translate this into action. We have talked and talked, and we are continuing to talk, but the symposium this year, we want to have some tangible actions that should help us transform our sector.
All right. And that is Mr. Robert Otim, who's the National Director, Habitat for Humanity Uganda. And the symposium is going to be taking place this Thursday, the 5th of October at Mistil Hotel. And so if you want to participate, you can go over to the social medias, be able to find a link there and get yourself registered or make a phone